let's get started. Today's webinar is titled Benefits of Traveling Long-Term for Recent Graduates and Seasoned Professionals. And our presenters today are Lisa and Lucas Barber, who are both RIT alumni and former RIT staff members who are now currently full-time travelers on a global journey to explore culture. Given their love for travel, they underwent a major lifestyle change in April 2016 and have been traveling abroad for the past year. They took a step back from their careers at RIT, sold their home, and purchased a one-way ticket to New Zealand to create memorable experience, which they share on their blog at barbersgoglobal.com. They are currently joining us today all the way from Beijing, China. Lisa and Lucas, thank you so much for joining us, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Amber, for having us. Hello, everyone from Beijing. It's always nice to connect with fellow Tigers as it reminds us of a little piece of home since we haven't been back in a while, and since Lucas and I were born and raised in Rochester. So we're going to go right into our backgrounds of who we are. Both Lucas and I are RIT alum, and we previously held positions as directors at RIT, as Amber mentioned, and I graduated from the master's program in communications and media technology from the College of Liberal Arts. And Lucas graduated from Saunders College of Business from the Entrepreneurship and Innovative Ventures Master's Program. Just with a little bit of our background on our academics and positions at RIT, because we're going to talk a little later about how you can leverage travel for your career and how skills can be added to your current portfolio of skills. So as we mentioned, we're currently in China, and to date we have traveled 33,515 miles since we left home in April 2016, which is pretty amazing that we've actually been on the road for a little over a year now. Since then, we've visited 11 countries. So we started in New Zealand, and we lived there for 4 months. And explored Australia for about a month, and then we moved on to Indonesia. So we were able to visit Bali and Java, and then moved into Southeast Asia, including Singapore, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, before moving into Eastern Asia, which we're currently doing now. So last week we were in Hong Kong, today we're in Beijing, and next week, or actually the end of this week, we're going to be in South Korea, and then Japan. So the journey will be continuing.
So today we want to cover a few different ideas and topics for you. The first will be introduce myself, since Lisa's done most of the talking so far. I'm Lucas. Should I say better half? No, probably she's the better half, but today we'll be talking about slow travel, of course, and we're going to define that and what that means and how that is different from just regular travel or even business travel. We'll talk about why people choose to do long-term travel as it's becoming more common. We'll also discuss the common misconceptions of long-term travel and just life on the road. And then we'll move on to the benefits of long-term travel, how to leverage your experience to advance your career. And then we don't want to act like it's all rainbows and butterflies, so we will talk about a few of the challenges of travel. And then we'll close out with Q&A. We'll answer any questions you may have for us.
And one question we have for you guys right now who are joining us today is, let us know if you have ever worked or studied outside of the U.S.
So slow travel, and some folks that we follow, other bloggers from Slow Vegan Travel, I really liked how they defined slow travel, and they said that slow travel is about fully immersive experiences. It's centered around a prolonged and in-depth experience, primarily with locals, but not always. It's about taking the time to embrace everything around us, to enjoy even the simplest things that aren't necessarily the most popular or the most famous. Mostly to us, it's about long-term travel is about taking the time to develop relationships and embrace a culture. It's about experiences over passport stamps. Oftentimes, we'll see people that are discussing or talking about all the countries they traveled, and I ask, well, what did you like about it? And they can only kind of name their resort or their hotel or maybe some bars or a restaurant they went to, because, just saying you've been there is a lot of people's goal, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. How you travel is personal, and that's fine. But long-term travel is really focusing about embracing a culture and gaining a deeper understanding of it. And so that will take you off the path sometimes. It will not always be at the big tourist traps, which is fine. We go to those as well because there's a reason why a lot of people want to go there. They're usually beautiful. But, really to dig in, go into the alleyways, talk to locals, explore places with them. That's what long-term travel is, so you really understand it better. So it looks like actually 33% of people actually lived or been outside of the U.S. or studied, and that's fantastic. That's better than us. We had never done a study abroad ourselves when we were in undergrad or grad school, and this was our first time leaving the country for an extended period of time when we left last April. And while we travel, we try to now spend at least 1 month in the country if it's possible. That's not always possible. And actually, for example, right now we're in Beijing, and we'll only be here for 2.5 days because we have a 72-hour visa because we're passing through as we go to Korea, where we'll spend a month. So why would someone travel long term? If you've thought about this idea, if you have talked to others about it, maybe colleagues, maybe a spouse or friends, if you're earlier in your professional career, maybe even your parents, they may scratch their head, but, why you may do it. But here are a few reasons that we found that people do embark on long-term travel. One, they're looking for connection. For whatever reason, they feel maybe isolated. They don't feel like they're really building and forming relationships the way they would like to or they had previously experienced. They may be just looking for a change. Maybe they're unsatisfied with the company that they're working for, even where they live geographically, so they're looking to do something different. Pursuing a dream. Our dream, and we'll share a little bit more about why we chose to travel long term, but one of our dreams was to travel long term. So this could be something that had just been on the back burner, but something they always wanted to do that they're now getting an opportunity to do. And then cultural experiences. You watch a movie, maybe something like Eat, Love, Pray, or The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, or anything where they're going to all these exotic locations and they're living there, or they're having these amazing experiences, and it just speaks to you, and a person thinks, I really want to get involved in another culture. I've always loved the Japanese culture, so I'd love to live there or spend a significant amount of time there. And then other reasons I've heard are people want to just find themselves, they're unsure where they are in their lives, they're tired of the corporate world or the rat race you may hear, or they're just looking for adventure. And everyone's reason is personal, but it usually boils down to them not feeling fulfilled. Dr. Thomas Gilovich, who is a psychology professor at Cornell University, says that experiences become a part of our identity. We are not our possessions, but we are the accumulation of everything we've seen, the things we've done, and the places we've been. Buying an Apple Watch isn't going to change who you are. Taking a break from work to hike the Appalachian Trail from start to finish most certainly will. And he continues on to say that our experiences are a bigger part of ourselves than our material goods. You can really like your material stuff. You can even think that part of your identity is connected to those things, but nonetheless, they remain separate from you. In contrast, your experiences really are a part of you. We are the sum total of our experiences. So when we look at why we may travel long term, it's because there is this experience, there are experiences that we know will change us and help us grow and become just better citizens. And I really like what Jay Cassano says. He says, shared experiences connect us more to other people than shared consumption. When you travel long term and you meet other travelers or you meet locals and you have this amazing experience, maybe you attended a festival in another country together, it changes your perception of the world. It changes how you are able to empathize and understand what's going on around you. So when we bring that back, and we'll talk about this a little, professional lives, once you end long-term travel, the benefits world view where you actually understand a culture more deeply will benefit you more so than probably any degree ever will.
And we're just going to jump in here with another poll question for our participants. Let us know, what's the longest you've lived abroad continuously?
Okay, so we're personal, and we're going to tell you why we chose to travel. We're going to share our personal experience. Deciding to travel long term is a life-changing decision, especially when you're not only making the decision for yourself, but then also for your partner. It impacts so many different facets of your life, whether it's your career, personal relationships, or your professional relationships, and even your finances as well. We realized that there was really no guarantee that we'd be able to travel once we retired due to a number of different reasons that could happen in the future, whether it was with our health or finances or other commitments. And one of the other reasons why we chose to travel is what Lucas mentioned earlier, which is just to fulfill a lifelong dream. And sometimes you feel as though, life may be passing you by and you're thinking, okay, what have I done to reach a childhood goal of mine? And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to choose to travel. So we decided that because of our love for travel, we wanted to immerse ourselves fully into various cultures, discover new foods and fruits, and live in places that we've only dreamed of visiting. So in 2014, we prepared for the trip of a lifetime, even though we personally didn't know anyone in our network who had taken this drastic measure of full-time travel. We did our best to prepare and plan and try to read as much as we could to do what we could, and a year later we're here and we're trying to show others how they can actually travel long-term as well. So I'm looking at the poll here. It says the question was, what is the longest that you've lived abroad consecutively? I see 36% have never. Okay, all right, 30% is never. 7% is, let's see, and 21% is the over 1 year. Okay, well that's good. That'll be interesting to kind of hear your experiences too, whether that was abroad or if that was in a profession that you were pursuing in a career while you were living abroad. So addressing common misconceptions about long-term travel. A lot of people have an image of what full-time travel looks like. So we want to kind of debunk those myths today. So the first one is travel is always glamorous, and that is false. We think because of the prevalence of social media, and we see a lot of people traveling and posting photos that it looks like long is one nonstop adventure. But in reality, it's difficult. It's difficult because you have to actually still maintain the responsibilities that you have, whether regular duties, having a routine, trip planning, doing your laundry, which are normal things. People think, you don't have to do that, but you still have to be able to do laundry and mend your clothes while you're on the road, and just simply recovering from the road. Sometimes you may feel like you're a tourist, but you really have to pencil in some downtime so you have some personal time to yourself. Some days will be very uneventful as you're just trying to navigate your way through. The second one is that your career will suffer due to a gap in your resume. Many may think that hitting the road after college or quitting a lucrative job to live a life of adventure is career suicide. But potential employers will never hire somebody who has taken 1 to 2 years off to travel the globe. But in reality, people are usually frequently drawn to people who travel and have stories. So during that period of travel, there are a number of ways to acquire new skills and work on projects that add to your resume. Another common misconception is that your skills and knowledge base will be outdated. During that time of travel, you are able to build a range of marketable skills, whether it's time management, financial planning, and conflict resolution. It's also a perfect way to get employers interested in you and your global experiences to contribute to their organization. And long-term travelers can always use examples that have helped them to navigate a difficult situation that they have been in. And you can continue to stay current in your industry as well. Another misconception is that travel allows you to escape real life. The truth is, whatever problems that you had before you started travel, those personal problems or challenges are still going to remain with you. They don't disappear. So in fact, it will be added baggage to your journey, and it's more likely to appear during your time abroad if you don't actually rectify or come to the conclusion of personal challenges. Sometimes those issues may even magnify over time because now you're in a foreign country if you're trying to overcome a situation. And the last misconception is if you're a solo traveler, you will constantly be lonely. So this is not so much true because you're actually going to be meeting people on the road. The truth is, traveling allows you to form close relationships with people on the road. Due to the amount of relationships that you will develop along the way, it's quite difficult to tell. So strangers will end up becoming friends, where you end up having great conversations about maybe new things happening in your industry or your field, and you end up making those lasting connections.
So let's talk a little bit more about some of the benefits of long-term travel and skills that you'll learn and develop almost by accident. Some of these you may be more intentional about, but for the most part, a lot of these just will come to you just by navigating the different challenges you'll face while you travel. So the first one will be a figure-it-out mentality. So employers will love this, that you have this figure-it-out mentality where you can thrive in chaos and uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty with long-term travel. Now, if you were to go and work in another country, you would have, your life would be very similar to the life you currently live. But traveling where, you don't have a set routine, or at least one that you're not creating for yourself, chaos and uncertainty, especially when you go into a new country, the first couple of days when you're trying to get sorted and situated, it can be quite challenging. So your ability to move through that and navigate that really comes in handy later on. Getting more from less. Getting more from what you have, but learning that just because you don't have everything, it doesn't mean you can't make magic. So you see this time and again as you travel, especially if you visit developing countries. You'll learn this about yourself, as you can't take everything with you from home as you're moving around. So you have to figure out what's essential, and what you do have has to be able to be multifunctional and serve multi-purposes. But when you're on the road and you're in developing countries, you'll see people that have very little but are running small businesses, things that you say, oh, if I would have had this or that, you know, if I could only get a little bit more, you'll realize that that's really only an excuse. So developing this mentality of, I have to use what I have to make something happen is a really good skill, and you'll see it and you'll also live it. You'll learn new ways to communicate. Now, depending on where you choose to travel, they may speak your native tongue or they may not. And even if they do speak your native tongue, let's say English, when we went to New Zealand and when we were in more rural New Zealand, away from the city, the accents get a little bit heavier. The slang gets a little more drastic. So you're having to constantly figure out, how can I communicate with individuals clearly so that I'm understanding what they need, but they're understanding what I need. And when you go into another country, you know, where they speak a completely different language, especially the first time we hit a country where they didn't use the alphabet that we're familiar with and they use different characters, you know, you start using hand gestures, you start using facial expressions, and you'll realize how much you are able to communicate, even if you can't speak the same language. And this comes in very handy when you need to, when you're in an office environment or, you know, whatever firm you may be working with, and you have to read individuals, and they may be trying to tell you something but not able to fully articulate it. It will become a very useful tool to have in your tool belt. Appreciating the power of a conversation. You will begin to value conversation much, much more. You'll realize how much you can learn and gain from just having a casual encounter with someone. Oftentimes when we're on the road, it starts off as a hello. It starts off as, you know, oh, what is that you're eating? And it becomes this whole different conversation where you walk away and you have so much more knowledge and understanding about this community or an individual. For example, when we were in Vietnam, it actually didn't happen with a local, but it happened with a veteran who was visiting Vietnam for the first time since he was in the Vietnam War. And we were in Hue, Vietnam, and we're sitting at dinner, and we saw them eating a dish, and we just asked them what they were eating. And an hour later, we had learned that this gentleman he was from Texas, but he had been a prisoner of war for 5 years in Vietnam. He had multiple children. He had worked on a ranch. We had learned about his political views and why they were, and it was really eye-opening, and we just felt so fortunate to have had that conversation with this individual because we learned so much more about other people's perspectives that we never would have had any other way. And we've had those type of conversations routinely as we've traveled. And the benefit of also traveling slowly is that once you have one of those conversations, you can meet that person again and further that dialogue. So it's really special in that sense. Developing you will question why, you will ask why a lot as you travel. You're going to see things and experience things that you haven't before. And so it gets you into this mindset of not just settling for, oh, it's just that's what they do. It's, well, why do they do this? What's the history behind it? What's the cultural influence? What's their own personal reason why they do it? You know, or so why do, and you'll begin to even question your own self and the things that you do. And this is a very powerful tool to have when you go back into the workforce, because he's in the root of a situation, will benefit you tremendously, because too often in our professional lives, we're putting out fires as opposed to trying to stop fires from ever being started. And this will get you into that mindset of asking the harder questions and doing a little more digging and having a deeper understanding. You'll get out of your comfort zone. This is an absolute, like, if you travel long term, there's no way to avoid getting outside of your comfort zone, because it's going to be greatly expanded. You're going to be going to countries where the norms that you have are completely different to how they do things, and it's going to push you and kind of make it uncomfortable, and that's okay, because you'll begin to become comfortable with your discomfort. So when you think about having to do a presentation, you'll realize that that's nothing when you've had to try to find a last-minute accommodation in a country where you don't speak the language, or you can't get a SIM card, and you can't access Google Maps, and you have no idea where you are, and it's 5 a.m., which kind of happened to us last night when our flight was delayed by hours and we came into Beijing. So being uncomfortable is okay. And so when you go back into professional setting, it won't be as alarming, because, perspective-wise, it's not going to be as challenging as getting lost in another country. You'll certainly find new inspiration. You will meet so many people showing you what passion and purpose looks like that you'll find it hard not to want to live the same way. You'll be exposed to new design, new styles, textures, smells, technology, and then you'll experience them being integrated in new and exciting ways. So you will not lack, if you feel like you maybe are lacking inspiration, or especially if you're creative and you're in a creative rut professionally, traveling long-term will open your eyes to so many different things. We're constantly taking notes of how they're integrating technology in a certain country to help, mass transit, or, how they do posters, how they do advertising or dining, or all these different things. And you'll just be inspired when you go out into nature, and do these amazing hikes, or just have your quiet time. So finding new inspiration will never be an issue. You'll have a new appreciation of scope. And travel, Robert says this. He says, travel makes one modest. You see what a tiny place you occupy in the world. And when I think about that, what can your problem be? And how important are you really when you're standing next to a mountain, or you can no longer see the shore? Oftentimes we get in our careers, or maybe with the current project that you're working on, it can feel like it's your entire world. But one opportunity to go to some of these places, and you stand next to a mountain, or you're looking at the Himalayas, or you're out in the ocean and you can't see the shore, you realize not that big of a deal. So whenever you're in your current situation and feeling overwhelmed, you can look back and think about, man, I was just a speck that was sitting on a glacier on the other side of the world. So this problem, it's really not that big. I'm making it a bigger deal than it should be. You'll learn patience. And sometimes the greatest things take the longest time. In my professional career, and I know, through Lisa and my conversations, we talk about some of those projects that take a long time. Projects that you feel maybe could have been in a much shorter time span. So your patience is constantly tested. But when you travel and you start to see some of the world wonders, and you look at some of these churches or other amazing structures, and you realize how long it took them, or even we were learning about soy sauce and how long a great soy sauce takes to make. it'll remind you that it's okay to slow down, take a breath, and not rush through it so that you can make something enduring. So you'll see that time and time again as well. Positivity. So things go wrong for you and others when you travel. The longer you start to get a handle on certain things, but things always go wrong. There's no way to avoid it. But while you're traveling, you'll see tremendous examples of people responding positively when their situations say they should do otherwise. Learning to be inclusive. They're going to invite you to weddings, birthdays, dinners, coffee, or even funerals. And I say that because we've been invited to all of those things. And they go out of their way so that you can understand their culture and learn from them. When we were in New Zealand, we got to know a Maori family, which the Maori are the indigenous people of New Zealand. And because they knew we were trying to learn more about their culture, unfortunately, there was a tragedy in one of the families, and they invited us to the funeral. So to be able to experience a funeral, which is not something you would normally invite a stranger to, but they knew that we were trying to learn about their culture, so they invited us. And the 2 hours that we spent there, it was overwhelming, with what we experienced, and it was so amazing, and we felt that we understood the culture and the family bond, made it, that whole thing spin so much better because of it. So I guarantee that when this happens, when strangers invite you to things, you will have the most memorable experiences of your life. You'll learn more about a person and their culture in those moments than in almost any other way possible. Remember that, and then you can remember that when there are people on your team or in your office that you see sitting by themselves or not being embraced by others, because making the extra effort with your team can lead to incredible. You will grow in ways that you can't even comprehend by strangers taking you in and inviting you to different things. It's the same way your team can grow and become stronger and more informed by you taking the initiative to be more inclusive. You also learn not to judge a book by its cover. It's an old lesson that you will be reminded of over and over again when you're on the road. Some of the best food we've eaten, some of the best experiences we've had have happened despite our low expectations going into a place. Now, there's certainly glamorous places that everyone has heard about when you're traveling, but there's other places that maybe they don't have as great of a reputation, or any of that. But you go in there, and then you find that you have these amazing experiences. So when you take that back to your professional life, people and projects can surprise you in the most incredible ways. So even when you're handed a project that does not seem exciting, oftentimes when we dig into it and we look beyond the surface, we can find very valuable things that can help us grow. You'll certainly improve your organizational skills. There's no way to sustain long-term travel without improving your organizational skills. There's too much that has to happen, from getting your visas to finding places to stay to managing your money properly, for you not to become more organized. Also dealing with the mundane. Lisa mentioned it earlier, but every day isn't mind-blowing. But you know that amazing can happen at any time. Our professional lives follow these same ebbs and flows. Every day is not going to be mind-blowing. You're not going to be working on the greatest project all the time. But when we can manage that, and we can work through some of the more mundane things in our lives, great things can happen for us, and great experiences are usually right around the corner. And then time management. Now, it seems like you have all the free time in the world, but depending on what you're doing, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, you have to be able to manage your time because if you're location independent or you're working on various projects, you're doing freelance work, or any of those things, even if you're just trying to learn new skills, you have to be able to manage your time. And it can be hard sometimes when you are 50 feet from a beach and no one's there to tell you that you have to be somewhere. You have to be able to manage your time, and that definitely will translate to your professional life.
Leveraging your travel experience, and this is what we're going to talk about, is how to do it to advance your career. So after experiencing life abroad, at some point as a professional, you're going to want to re-enter the workforce at some point, whether you're a recent graduate or an experienced professional. So leveraging your personal experience or your travel experience provides you with tools to advance your career in a very different amount of ways. So think of it as like your talking points when you're with the company after you've finished your travel experience. The ability to embrace diversity in the workplace. As the workforce continues to become more diverse, individuals who are able to work well with people from various backgrounds will appeal more to majority of employers. So as employees function in a global market, companies are always going to continue to expand their businesses, their personnel, and their resources around the world. And when they do, the likelihood of working with a coworker in and from a different part of the world increases as well. So your travel experience adds to that in working with other people. As an extension of that embracing diversity, your experiences will equip you with cultural competencies. So companies are looking for ways to hire candidates with a strong cultural competence. Whether you're graduates who embrace diversity and inclusion are valued and may have the upper hand due to experiences in and out of the classroom, which we know that RIT wholeheartedly embraces. So fostering an awareness of culture will provide you the skills to interact effectively with people from different cultures. Another way travel will help advance your career is through your global network. And as you connect with individuals along the way in your travels, you're going to naturally just form relationships with people, and you're going to understand what they do while they're on the road and what field that they're in. So this gives you access to an exclusive network of people around the world. So not only can you say that you've been able to visit a particular country, but you've also served as a connector for relationships all around the globe. So as a candidate entering the workforce, you have a greater likelihood of having a competitive advantage because you have valuable connections. And those connections, those can always be made in co-working spaces. So for example, we were in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is northern Thailand, and we were able to meet so many people from different parts of the world or from the US that were working on some amazing projects. Some of them were just personal projects that ended up getting the attention of large companies, and they're ending up working on some really, doing some really great work. So you never know who you may meet along the way. Like I said, expand your networking circle as well. So you can leverage those throughout your travels. The other aspect is being able to communicate cross-culturally. Having an appreciation and understanding of cultural practices outside of your own is a valuable skill. The long-term travelers oftentimes become great communicators and creative problem solvers because that we come across. So we have the ability to be able to streamline the flow of communication in the workplace and provide information accurately and promptly for an effective work and team performance. This is especially important when a project hits a roadblock and you really need to make corrective actions to be able to meet a goal. The other way you can leverage your experience is by extended travel builds all types of marketing skills, marketable skills. So whether that's goal setting, project management, time management, setting and maintaining budgets, and conflict resolution, to name a few. So travel can also inspire moments of realization when you realize gaps in your own knowledge, which may reveal that you may not be globally connected as we perceive ourselves to be, but travel actually opens us up to that. So learning about cultures and can provide us with a more rounded view of cultural differences and similarities to be able to communicate. Now that we've talked a little bit about the benefits of travel and how you can leverage it, a few challenges that we do need to address, because it's not always rainbows and butterflies like Lucas mentioned earlier today. One of them is being able to tackle the money management. Unless you are born into a wealthy family or you have a large access to a lot of money, you will need to be on a budget. So this may mean your daily or your monthly spending, and just making sure that you're keeping track of your expenses as you go along the way. The second thing is planning and researching your travel itinerary. While this may be fun in theory, sometimes it could actually be time consuming because you have to look up the visa requirements to get in and out of a country. You may have to look at what kind of sites that you want to see, and sometimes you have to take a step back so that you can actually pencil in some downtime so you can get some projects done. Also, staying motivated. This includes holding yourself accountable when others aren't around, like Lucas said. Sometimes you're feet from a beach, not too far from a beach, and you need to work on a project that will be able to help your skill set to further your career, which goes hand in hand with time management. Finding a routine that works for you. Because long-term travel is not something that is actually normal to everyday life, you need to make sure that you pencil in exercising, if you're going to be making sure that you're going to have an eating regimen, working on any professional development skills or courses that you may want to gain while you're on the road. That's something that you'll have to find time to do and be able to schedule as your routine.
So I really like this quote by Oliver Wendell Holmes. It says, "A mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions." I like this because as you travel, as you experience new things, especially dive deeper, you cannot remain the same. You can't go back to who you were, and that's good for you. That's good for your professional life. That's good for your community. That's good for your country. That's even good for RIT if you're an alumni, because having a deeper understanding of the world and how it really works, not just the surface level, not just the sound bites from cable news, but being there on the ground, seeing how people live, seeing how people prosper, and seeing how they struggle will change you. Understanding how entrepreneurship works, and for me, being a grad of Saunders College of Business, this is really fun for me, is seeing how the grassroots entrepreneurs are working, not just in the tech fields in these countries, but in all forms of small businesses, their challenges, their growth. I see that, and it's changed how I fundamentally look at what entrepreneurship is. So it's a wonderful experience to know that who you are when you leave is not who you're going to be once you come back, and how that applies and improves on your professional trajectory is amazing. So now that we've discussed all of this, and we've the benefits of long-term travel, how it can advance your career and expand your skill set, we hope that our will encourage you to travel more often, or maybe even take the leap to follow your own dreams of long-term travel. So we just want to thank you for being a part of this webinar with us. And if you'd like to connect with us, our website is barbersgoglobal.com. If you have any questions that you think of later, or you have any specific questions or challenges that you're facing regarding long-term travel, you're welcome to email us at info@barbersgoglobal.com. And we love to hear from you guys on social media. Tag us in your travel pictures or preparation. We love to just see what's going on with you as well. And if you are interested in traveling long term, we'll have the course on Udemy shortly. In the next, I would say, 3 weeks, it should be live. It goes into much greater detail on walking you through the entire process of preparing as a professional to begin in long-term travel. It's the ins and outs, how you sustain yourself, how you manage your money, how to create income for yourself as you travel. So you're welcome to participate in that. If you need more information, you can email us as well at info@barbersgoglobal.com. So with that, we'd love to hear from you if you have any questions.
Can you guys, thank you so much, Lucas and Lisa. That was a fantastic overview of your experiences. Can you share with us, while you're visiting these countries, what you're doing traveling? So, you mentioned trying to fit in the projects you're doing. Can you discuss that for us?
Certainly. So, in the various countries, we write for other travel websites or lifestyle brands and blogs. We've done freelance creative work from videography and photography.
Ambassadors, travel ambassadors.
Yeah, we're travel ambassadors, so we work with a few travel companies on promoting their brands. And then we work on our own projects like this course, our professional development, so skills that we want to learn, we have wanted to learn, but didn't necessarily have the time previously when we were working full time. So it depends on what's going on, but there's always something happening that we're trying to juggle, along with seeing some amazing things and meeting amazing people. Oh, and we also have done meetups with other, like in co-working spaces. And I'll say this, if you travel full-time, co-working spaces are so popular now globally. In each city that you go to, they usually have their own community that you can connect with, where they have workshops, they have meet and greets, they have all types of professional development opportunities and networking opportunities. So it's a really wonderful community as you travel.
Very cool. We have a question from one of our participants. How do you guys fund your travel? Are you working along the way, or did you save up beforehand and are working off that per your budget?
So one of the things that we did was we decided, I think I mentioned this, that we decided that we wanted to start long-term travel back in 2014. So we saved for that period of time before we embarked on our journey and eliminated debt, which is the most important factor in traveling. I wouldn't say the most important, but it is very critical because we have very little overhead expense when we are traveling, or fixed bills, I would say. So we don't really have any phone bills. When you get rid of all the possessions from back home, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a car note, you don't have a phone bill anymore, because maybe you're using a service that allows you to communicate freely with your family and friends back home. But we actually were able to save, eliminate that, and then through our blog, it has provided us with opportunities that we can be able to partner and continue to fund our travel.
So we've lived mostly off of savings, but we also have done paid projects for different companies on our blog. As Lisa mentioned, we sell advertising space at times, depending if the company aligns with what we believe in. But also we've leveraged our professional skills to get free accommodations, free meals, free access to events and different things like that. So, you know, it's been, you just present yourself and use your skills, so you don't always have to pay for things as well, which is a benefit.
Right, especially if you already have those skills. So Lucas has a background in photography and videography, and I was already, so we currently use that to parlay our experiences on our website, Barbers Go Global. So it's all about just looking at what you currently do in your current profession and seeing how that can be used on the road.
Probably more marketable than you believe.
And so you guys mentioned, you know, you spent 4 months in New Zealand, then a month in Australia, and then you went into other parts of Asia. What are the things that you guys look for when identifying your next travel location?
Usually it comes down to like where we can get a flight deal from. So the way we do it is we look at when our visa is going to run out. We look at what country we can fly to next. Every country is interesting, so that's never really a concern. And then we usually head that way. Sometimes we have specific places we want to go, and we'll do that. We figure that out through research. But for the most part, you know, we really look for where's a good flight deal, and then we go from there.
Yeah. The key is to actually staying regionally. So if you know you want to be able to explore Southeast Asia, you can use Thailand as your base and then go to neighboring countries until you're ready to move on.
Very helpful and good advice throughout this whole webinar. Thank you guys so much. Like we said, like Lisa and Lucas said, if you have questions for them, you can connect with them on their social media or their blog. But additional questions can also be emailed to us at ritalum@rit.edu or tweeted to @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITWebinars. And we can also help get those questions to Lisa and Lucas. Please note that all participants here today will receive an email from us in the next few days with a link to today's webinar recording. Thank you so much, Lisa and Lucas, for being our panelists today, and thank you to everyone for joining us. Please consider joining us next Wednesday on April 26th for Making Your Home Work for You, Design Strategies for Aging in Place with alumna and RIT Interior Design Professor Heidi Schlegel, where you will discover if aging in place is the right option for you, evaluating your home for viability, and learning home design strategies for successful aging in place. Thanks again to you all for joining us. Please exit this webinar by simply closing your WebEx window, and please do let us know what you thought of the webinar through a brief survey, which will pop up when you exit. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.